Hi there. These comments, I'm going to just use the first letter of your name, T, and I am Michael Buckoff, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass the TOEFL IBT. And you had a quick question. Actually, it's not a quick question. Let's see what you say here. I get this question every now and then, and you're also one of my students. You've been one of my students since last November, so I want to make sure I give you a very thorough response. So you say, I received my TOEFL score yesterday. Although I scored 98 with 26 points on the speaking, 24 points in the listening, 25 points on the reading, you say my writing score is 23, where I needed was 24. You want to say what I needed was 24. I would probably not use where there. You see, I'm just 1 point short of my goal. Hence, I'm planning to go for rescoring. I think you want to say that you're planning to pay for rescoring. You see, I've done the essay session exceptionally well. Since I ran out of time, I could not complete the conclusion part. I would use here in which I could write only a few words here. Now you're kind of contradicting yourself. You're saying you did exceptionally well, but you did not finish the conclusion. So if you didn't finish the conclusion, it means you ran out of time. That means you did not do it exceptionally well. So you say, considering all these facts, could you advise me whether it would be worth giving myself a try with writing? You want to say with rescoring the writing section of the exam, right? So, and what I asked you to do is I told you to send me an independent or integrated writing practice test so I could take a look at your writing and then give you an answer based on that. So you got 23. And first of all, let's take a look at the rubrics here for just a minute. 23 points, let's see what it means, and let's take a look at one of your essays to see. So you're almost 24. You're just below the magic number here. So it says here, addresses a topic and task using somewhat developed explanations, examples, and details. It means you can probably use better details to express your ideas. The next one has unity, progression, and coherence. However, sometimes it's difficult to understand the connection of your ideas. So you can do better organizing. It says here you have some problems with sentence formation and word choice that makes your ideas and meaning unclear. And then it says has accurate but limited range of sentence structures and vocabulary. So what we want to do is take a look at what you've written in one of the practice tests at my website to see how you're doing in these areas. So with the first one, you say here, the first one is, do you agree or disagree that dancing can express a country's culture? I think it was, is dancing an important part of someone's culture, right? So you say every nation has its own ways of reflecting their culture. Now, you say dancing is one of the trademarks that reflects a country's culture. Dancing has importance in a country's culture since most of the performances tell the history of the nation and their traditional beliefs. Also, these performances can show the cultural depth of the country. Now, what you wrote here, let's take a look at your word count here. So you're at 260 words. I'm going to say no. I don't think this essay would score 24 points out of 30 based on what you've written. You want to have at least 350 words. And instead of having 2 key ideas, you probably want 3. So I'm going to say that this essay probably needs to be developed more than what you've done. And the thesis is really unclear. It says it tells the performances of the history of the nation and their traditional beliefs. Also, these performances can show the cultural depth of the country. And then you say, first, many dance performances are based on the historical stories and beliefs. So I'm going to say it's not very focused here. And let me give you an idea of how you could focus your thesis more, and it'd be easier to give details, I think, based on this idea. So let's go back to the beginning here. What if you said this? If you said a valuable part of Indian culture, dancing strengthens religious faith. It strengthens the religious faith of its followers, reminds society of the importance of historical events, and demonstrates the cultural importance of the family. Now, this is going to be more specific. In this case, based on this thesis, you have A, B, and C. First of all, you have to illustrate here about how dancing strengthens the religious faith of its followers, and particularly with your example, you have to connect this to the Hindu religion. And you have to show the causal relationship between dancing and then strengthening the faith of the Hindu religion, or the followers of the Hindu religion, right? So that would be one idea. Then you go on to the next idea, which demonstrates the importance of historical events. And you could give one example. You might illustrate a particular dance that illustrates or tells the story of the independence of India, how India became an independent nation from, say, Britain or England or whatever. And you can show how the dance is important to remind the citizens of that particular event. And then you get to your third idea before you get to your conclusion, and you can talk about how dancing demonstrates the cultural importance of the family. So your thesis in this particular essay is not very specific. It's a very vague, unfocused type thesis. If you look at your body paragraphs, you ended up kind of being in that exact way. You didn't have, you did talk about the Kathal Kylie, and there's a main performer and a story and a singer. You say the central performer does the acting with different expressions on his face. Most of these stories are from the Hindu religious book known as the Ramayanam. Then you say it's the basic religion. These art forms reflect the cultural beliefs in India. So you could probably connect that back to how it strengthens the religious faith of the people who follow the Hindu religion, and show how that dance is important in that respect. Your second idea, say dancing can visually express the cultural values of the nation that a nation possesses. There, you want to use the third person singular there. So I think this particular essay could be better organized, and I would score it probably in the lower area here, probably between 20 and 21 points out of 30. That's how I would score that particular essay that you've written there. Now, another thing is, let's take a look at some of your, let's say, sentence formation or word choice or any issues that you might be having with that. See, first, many dance performances are based on historical stories and beliefs. Believes is a verb. You want a noun, so you want to say beliefs. You say, while performing, the dancer conveys a story to the audience, to the audiences. You want to say who watch. You want to make this plural because you said audiences, which is plural, who watch his or her performance. But then you say cast in point. No, you have to say case in point. Kathakali is a traditional dance form which is very popular in India. Usually it is performed during Hindu religious occasions. I would probably take this religious and mostly played. I would say they're performed. You play music, but you perform a dance. So you'd say mostly performed In their temple. You say in temple, in their temple, in whose temples? I would just probably say, because there doesn't really refer to anything in the sentence, I would probably just say mostly performed in temples. In the Kathakali, I would say dance, there is a main performer in a story and a story singer. Based on the story, the central performer does the acting with different expressions. How about this? With different facial expressions. Then you have to worry about this. You'd say here, most of these stories are from the Hindu religious book. I don't think you need a dash there, known as Ramayanam. You don't need a comma after the word since either, because you don't want to separate that connector from the subject that it introduces. So since Hinduism is the basic religion in India, these art forms reflect the cultural beliefs in India. But specifically, what beliefs do they reflect, right? So you could still be a little more specific there. But anyway, in this case, I went over and I made some corrections. So it looks like you're having some word form or word choice issues. For example, using the word believes, which is a verb, instead of beliefs, which is a noun. Sometimes you're having punctuation issues also that you can probably work on also. So you have some punctuation issues, right? Now let's take a look at my website here and see if I have some suggestions for you. So, but the most serious issue you have with this particular essay is you do not have a very focused thesis, and you need to develop your topic with another 100 words. I'd recommend you need at least 100 more words with that particular essay, right? So if we go to writing, let's take a look here. In the writing part of my course, I'd like to have you take a look at a few things. One of them is lesson number 4, where it says creating sharply focused thesis statements for the independent writing task. I think that would be a good lesson for you to take a look at. Lesson number 4.2, how do I frame a thesis for the agree or disagree type of writing prompt? I think that would also be effective for you. I would also like to have you take a look at lesson number 8, how to make your writing more coherent. I think that would be a good lesson based on what I just read. Now if we go to grammar, again, you can take a look here in the grammar section of my course. I think here I'm going to say lesson number 2, being more concise. Sometimes you have a tendency to be a little wordy, and you can probably say things with fewer words. So lesson number 2, being more concise. Lesson number 3, when to use commas. Also, lesson number 4, I think, would be beneficial for you. Now, with lesson number 7, let me open this up in a new link. I do have some suggestions here. You can go to the website, and under writing exercises, this is a writer's reference by Diana Hacker, 6th edition. If you go to writing exercises, I think you could do additional practice with thesis statements. I think would benefit you. So thesis statements here, I think you should go over some of these exercises as well. And remember here, it says a thesis should be a central idea that requires supporting evidence. It should be of adequate scope, and it should be sharply focused. So I think you can probably improve in that because your thesis was not focused enough. So I think that would be an exercise that you can definitely do some work on also. All right, now let's go to the next essay that you wrote, you wanted me to take a look at. I think this one is better. And see, you're trying to get me to answer the question. The question here is, do I think you should have your essay rescored, right? That's really what it comes down to. All right, let's take a look at your next essay and let's see how you did on this one. Now, this one I think is more developed. Let's compare the two. So, in this case, I think you're closer to the limit. You're right around, it looks like 397 words. So this is probably more than what you need, but this is a lot more developed than what you did here, right? So if you had a more developed response like the one we're looking at, you probably will have a better chance of getting your essay rescored and scoring higher. But you know what you did and how you did it when you took the independent and the integrated writing tasks during the TOEFL IBT. So this is going to have to be your call. Now in this case, we have the question here, do you agree or disagree? Sometimes older people will need to receive, you can't say advices because advice is a count noun. It's advice from I would say from the younger generation probably is a better way to say that. So you say most of the young people will depend on the elders at one time or another in their life. However, this is also true. I would say it is also true that there are occasions, I would say here when the older people, there are occasions when the older people need the advice. You can't use S there. Advice with an S as a noun is actually a verb, advise. And when you put a C on there, then you make it a noun. When they need the advice and guidance from I'd probably say from a younger generation. Maybe the old generation needs the help of the younger ones. This is your thesis, right? The old generation needs the help of the younger ones when it comes to handling new technologies. You might use a word like furthermore, the younger I would say younger generations' help is needed also when there's any rapid action. I don't think you have to say when there is. Just say when So furthermore, the younger generation's help is needed when quick decisions How about just say, quick decisions are made. Okay, so this is a little bit better, I think. You have a more specific thesis this time than what you did in the previous independent writing task. So I think this is more promising. So then you say the older people often ask for the help of their younger ones whenever they need to handle some of the new technologies that they're not familiar with. There are enormous kinds of inventions that need skilled maneuvering, good vocabulary word. Oftentimes the young people are the only ones possessing the knowledge of how to handle them. You want to say case in point, not cast. It's really a hard job to control the supercars that are available today. See, I don't know what you're talking about here. It's your vocabulary. What kind of supercar do you refer to? I'm not even aware of kind of what you're saying here. You say for the older ones, they definitely need the help and the advice of the youngers before they start to handle it. Most of these cars are using latest methods such as automatic propulsion, voice command and identification, and robotic speed control. We don't say robotic, we say cruise speed control. So you have some word choice issues here. You're using words that native speakers would not use. You say, so here the younger generation is, not are, is aware of these things. Hence, they must give instructions to the elders. You have a sentence formation issue here. I'd put a semicolon there, then a comma here so you avoid that comma splice. Similar, when handling sophisticated and advanced, you might say devices or items such as the internet and satellite phones, the older people need adequate guidance from the younger. I would just say from younger people. I don't think you need a apostrophe here. So in this case, I think I would focus. You talked about supercars, but to be honest with you, I don't even know what you're talking about there. It's a very odd way to talk about the modern cars that we have. I mean, most modern cars are equipped with a lot of advanced type technology, but I'm just not sure what you're saying. So I think you will probably score lower than 24 on this particular essay, probably because of a lot of your vocabulary that you're using. It's just simply not natural sounding. You also have some sentence formation issues as well, right? Now, also bringing up the internet and satellite phones, I wouldn't use those in this particular paragraph, because once you bring them up, then you have to show why they're complicated and why there's a need for younger people to help the older people understand those devices. So, but you did have an extended example with the supercar, which was a good strategy, and you did spend time explaining that. So don't bring up these other ideas unless you plan on supporting them with more supporting detail. Okay, so the next one, you say second, the elder generation always needs support from the younger. I would say from the younger one. Whenever there is any rapid action is demanded, you can't use is and then is again. You can say whenever. Just say this, whenever rapid action is demanded. So saying the reason is, just say because here. Maybe then put a comma. Because when people become aged, I would say their reflex system will slow down. This is your sentence formation issue. Put a period here. And then put hence. These people will not be able to do things or act fast during situations. I would say here, in which rapid action is needed. So I think you're using where too much in your writing. You might want to go on the internet and compare the two words, in which versus where. If you're using where, you're typically talking about a location. I went to Los Angeles where I purchased my first automobile. You see what I'm saying? Oh, I'm going on a vacation to Miami where my family will also come and visit. You know, so if you're talking about a specific location, I would use the word where. If not, it's probably better to use the words in which. Okay, so in this case, you're talking about making a decision. And in this case, you're talking about what's called we're affected by legal order. But you didn't really talk about what it was. I think you need to spend time developing that particular idea if you want the reader to understand why you think it would be better for younger generations to give advice to the older generation. You see what I'm saying? So you probably could have developed that idea more. Now, your question is to me, you know, based on these essays, you're asking me, would you have your writing rescored? And I would say probably not. I'll be honest with you. I don't think either of these essays that you submitted, that you gave me right now, would score over 24 points out of 30 on the IBT writing section. So in the first case, you have some problems with your thesis. It needs to be more sharply focused, I think, and that would help improve the organization. And you also probably need to add a third idea there to help develop your response so it's closer to the 350 word limit, which is it's not exactly, it has to be 350 words, but it's typically a good idea to try to write closer to that. Now, in the second essay that you submitted, you had a lot of word choice and sentence formation issues. And if I go back to the actual rubrics here, yeah, I think here has problems with sentence formation and word choice that makes your ideas and meaning unclear. There is a big yes to that. So I think both of your essays, you can improve in that area. Has accurate but limited range of sentence structures and vocabulary. Not exactly. Sometimes you have problems combining some of your sentences using the appropriate punctuation. So I'm not convinced that you have good control over your sentence structure or sentence formation. So probably the two essays that you gave me, I do not think they would score 24 points out of 30. I think your writing here is more on the low end of the 3 spectrum, not on the high end. That's just my advice. All right, so if you go over to my website too, to help you with a lot of those word choice issues, you probably want to focus a little bit more on the idea, the vocabulary lessons. I think vocabulary lesson number 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, and number 6 also, those lessons are going to help you develop a little bit better command over the language. So I think you could probably benefit by continuing to focus in those areas and learning those words. Now, one thing, you're probably already doing this, but stay in the habit. This is important. Stay in the habit of reading on a regular basis, about 45 to 60 minutes every day. This also helps you improve your language use. Remember that you're using a lot of words that native speakers would not use in those situations. So the question is, well, how do you get better access to the language that we use when we communicate? So you get better access by reading magazines, newspapers, and books. And that's going to give you a better idea of how to explain your ideas. All right, now one thing that you might want to also do is, I do have an additional service where I will read and score and actually correct all the grammar errors and all the essays that you're writing. You could probably benefit by using this additional service for my course. It's a little bit expensive, I apologize, but it's a very effective service. So if you want to learn more about it, in the writing section of my course here, if you look after lesson 8, it says error correcting service for your independent and integrated writing tasks. You can click on that and you can learn more about that service. All right, anyway, thank you very much. And again, at the conclusion of this video, I'm actually saying that based on the writing that you sent me, I would probably not have your writing rescored because it's probably not going to make a big difference in your score, even 1 point. But that's just my opinion. Maybe the essays that you wrote for the TOEFL were better than the ones that I read today. Maybe. If that's the case, then it might be beneficial for you to have it rescored. But only you can make that decision.